Hello, gunfighters, and welcome to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about gunfighting and gun-related stuff the right way with God at the center. So I think I'm going to forego the lengthy bio. Try to abbreviate it. First and foremost, I am a Christian. That is number one in my life, serving God, following Jesus. Combat veteran, served in the United States Marine Corps and the Army. Also, law enforcement veteran, private contractor, state rifle and pistol champion. Professional big game hunter and guide. If you feel called to support, check out Patreon. There should be a link in the show notes. With that, I am your host, Michael Melito, and I am blessed to serve you today. Today, we're going to be talking about the Savage 110. I think a lot of times it gets overlooked as kind of a second-tier bolt-action rifle, but I don't think that it should. There was a time when Remington 700s were really good push-feed bolt-action rifles. I'm not so sure that's the case anymore. And my confidence in them has, let's say, been waning over the past several years. The Savage 110 and Savage in general, not so much. Their quality has been outstanding. The Savage 110 has been around a long time. I guess I should say it's a dual lug, push feed, cock on open, bolt action rifle. And because of that, I think it gets compared to the Remington 700 because pretty much all those features are the same, but it's not the same gun. And to be fair, some of that information is just bouncing around. Who knows where I collected it from, but I'm going to try and give credit. I'm going to pull some of this information from Wikipedia because I'm not so great at like when every different model came out. But designed in 1956, produced from 1958 to present. Think about that. Now, the Remington 700, I think, had some halting in production. You might want to verify that by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses, so verify everything that I'm saying. And the Winchester Model 70 came out in the 30s, but they've changed their design several times. The Winchester Model 70 of today is not the same as a pre-64 Winchester Model 70, which is why those pre-64s command such high respect and sometimes price tags. So although it's still the Model 70, they've changed several times. I'm sure there may have been some minor changes on the Savage Model 110, but as far as I know, they're pretty much the same action from the 1950s. And that's kind of the mark of a good gun, a good knife, something like that in general, is that it's been appreciated for decades. It's not just a flash in the pan, if you will. It's still being produced, and it doesn't show any signs of waning. In fact, there's a lot of really great new models. Fantastic guns. Now, I'm going to be honest, as much as I really like Savage and their bolt action guns, I prefer a controlled round feed. So right off the bat, I think for me, for a lot of uses, controlled round feed is better. For me. For people that put accuracy above all else, in general, they like push feed firearms, and they especially like dual lug push feed. 2 big simple lugs that lock into a big and simple receiver, because the simpler, the less kind of moving parts, the easier they are to be precisely machined and concentric. That's why you'll see a lot of the precision long-range rifles built on usually needing to be modified and improved Remington 700 actions or Savage 110s. That dual 2 big locking lugs in the front has kind of proven itself as a fantastically accurate design. And Savage has been building this action since the 50s. Continuously, it says, continuous production. That should say something about the quality and accuracy of this. Now, every Savage that I've ever owned, I think, has been accurate. And most of them crazy accurate. Like if I had spent several times more money, I would have been happy with the accuracy. I've never been disappointed in accuracy on a Savage. Something I didn't know until I looked it up, and again this comes from Wikipedia, the name comes from the initial price, which was $109.95, $110. Inflation. Anyway, that's a pretty cool fact though. Moving on. Originally in 30-06 and 270, in 1959 a short action version was introduced. Your short action cartridges. So there has been some modification, I guess. Per Wikipedia, in 1966 they added an adjustable trigger and a new bolt with a plunger type ejector. And this often confused me. The 110 for a while was pretty much everything was a 110, but it says here that sometime in the 90s they changed it and the short action was just the Model 10. So the 110, and then they changed the short actions, which prior to that were also 110s, to the Model 10. So if you see a Model 10, apparently it just means it's a short action version. And they kind of added a bunch of different models, the 11, the 111, the 12, the 14, 114, 16, and 116. And Model 210 and 200 bolt action rifles. Now I'm not going to go through all of those, but pretty much all based on this action, which again is a fantastically strong, accurate action. So right around 20 years ago in 2003, they came out with the AccuTrigger. Kind of good marketing on their part. The AccuTrigger, a lot of companies kind of, I think, ran with that kind of adjustable trigger, even though that's nothing new. A pre-64 Winchester Model 70 has an adjustable trigger that came out in the 30s. But for a while, companies went away from that. And the AccuTrigger kind of brought that back. A really good, out-of-the-box, and an affordable working man's rifle adjustable trigger. Because there's two parts to accuracy. And often people so hyper-focus on the mechanical accuracy. If I crank this thing down on a bench in a vise, in a vacuum tube, how accurate can this rifle stack rounds on top of each other at 100 yards? But far more important in real practical scenarios is how good can the shooter interface with that weapon and how accurate can you shoot it? And a really good expert marksman can shoot well with a really horrendous trigger, but it makes it a lot better and a lot more accurate as a whole, as meaning the interface of the shooter and the rifle, if you can have a good shootable trigger. And the Savage AccuTrigger is a good trigger. And I want to go back to something I touched on because I think it's a really good thing about Savage. They're an American company and they make things for blue-collar American working-class people. Something, a middle-class American can afford and go out to hunt with. They make firearms that'll kill anything on the planet, and they make them affordably. Is there beauty and elegance in a nice $50,000 double rifle? Yeah, there certainly is. But for the average blue-collar working man, you can get an amazingly accurate, rugged, reliable, robust American bolt-action rifle. And I think here in America, we love our rifles. We love handguns, we love shotguns, we love guns in general, but I think really American riflemen just kind of pairs together like peanut butter and jelly. We're known for being good marksmen, and hopefully we continue to earn that reputation by going out and practicing and training. So they are known for making affordable, good bolt-action rifles, and they are known for accuracy. They make really good barrels. They make really good actions. And their quality control hasn't waned in the past several years like some other companies. Remington. I don't get sponsors on the show. I'm not afraid to call out companies I think that make junk. Remington, Springfield. But Savage, no. Until I see them making junk, I'm going to tell you they're a good company that makes good stuff. Them and Ruger are kind of known for making good, affordable American firearms. And Savage really has that in the bolt-action rifle. And they have for a long time. Again, the 50s. And I think for a long time they kind of were seen as second tier to the Remington 700, but I don't think that's fair. Again, I go back to what I stated previously. If you put both on the table, made in the last 3 or 4 years, I get on Midway USA, and I have no affiliation with these companies. I don't take bribes. And they said you can have a brand new Savage 110 of your choice or a brand new Remington 700 of your choice, not to sell, to keep and to hunt with. I would take the Savage 110 because I have more confidence in that company and that quality, and they're both American made, than I do with Remington. Maybe Remington will get their stuff back together and start producing really good guns again. But until then, I'm going to go with the Savage. And I really wouldn't have any qualms about getting a Savage built 3 years ago or 30 years ago. They're phenomenal, good bolt-action rifles. One of the really cool things about Savage, if you don't know, is, and I'm going to be honest, I think Savages sometimes are the ugly ducklings in the bolt-action world. If you're trying to think of beautiful bolt-action rifles, you're probably not thinking Savage right off the bat. And one of the reasons is they have this big locking lug on the barrel. But that's one of the fantastic things that aids in their accuracy. If you want to become like a decent precision rifle gunsmith, Savages are known for being friendly to work on, easy to make headspace on, to set headspace on, easy to change barrels on, and they have this big locking lug on the barrel. And I think that's one of the things that makes them accurate and affordable, and I think that's fantastic. Now, I'm not left-handed, but I know that Savage is kind of known for their left-handed versions. So if that does apply to you, that may be another reason you look at the Savages. And this, even I didn't know, this again comes from Wikipedia, but the bolt head is a replaceable part. This means that if the user wishes to rebarrel the rifle, which again is fairly easy on this compared to other rifles, I interjected that, for use with a different cartridge, the bolt head can be changed to a new case head diameter. This allows for a much wider range of cartridge interchangeability at less expense. That's awesome. It's a fantastic system, and if you've listened, if you're like a dedicated listener, thank you. I appreciate you. I am humbled and honored that you give some of your time here. I really am. Thank you. And a special thanks to all the patrons that step up and support the show. I thank God that I'm able to do this, and I thank them that they step up and want to be part and a contributing member of the tribe. If you're a dedicated listener, you're probably aware of the Alaska Rifle Project. Now, I have selected an Alaska rifle by God's grace. Hopefully it'll be a shooter. I've been doing some things to it. I don't want to announce that yet. Only the patrons of the inner tribe really kind of know about what that is. I did a whole episode talking about the Alaska rifle and what I was looking for. And I really like Savage. I was thinking about Savage. The only thing that really knocked them out mainly was they make a push feed, and I wanted a controlled round feed. I really wanted a controlled round feed rifle for Alaska in particular. That being said, even with that, which was a major criteria, I was really, really looking at some of their variants. And because they're such good rifles and they're such a good value, let me get into some of the really cool variants. And they make a ton of variants, and they have over the years, but some of my personal favorites. The Hog Hunter. And not for hunting hogs, that's just the way that I like to hunt. Spot and stalk and still hunting. The Hog Hunter, one of the few modern bolt-action rifles that comes set with iron sights that's meant for kind of quick, handy shooting, not off a bench, but standing, kneeling, sitting, prone, snap shooting. The Hog Hunter, really cool variant of the 110. Also, the 110 Scout. Yes, Savage makes a Scout rifle. I'm not real sure that I would go with it. Again, I would want a controlled round feed if it was my one rifle. But I would imagine it's probably one of the most accurate of the Scout rifles, just because it is a Savage. And you can make a lot of rifles accurate if you put work into them. But in my experience, Savages come right out of the box accurate. So if you wanted a scout rifle and your number one box checking thing on that was accuracy, I would give a good hard look at the Savage. And probably my favorite variant are the carbon fiber. And they use Proof Research barrels. Now, Savage makes fine barrels on their own, but Proof Research carbon fiber barrels are kind of the standard for lightweight, long-range accuracy. And Savage uses those barrels. And unlike a lot of custom rifles you can get with those barrels that may be outside the reach of a lot of the average working man's salary, these aren't. These are still affordable rifles. And they're fantastic. And unlike a giant bull barrel, they're light enough to still be used in hunting. Like the kind of hunting that a lot of people do, not the kind where you set the rifle on a giant stand or apparatus because it weighs too much. And they can be fired repeatedly. They kind of give you that lesser degree of point of aim, point of impact shift that you would get with a bull barrel without the weight of a bull barrel. That's kind of the point of carbon fiber barrels. And Savage, they do this and they do it affordably, and that's amazing. They have their carbon fiber ones and they have the tactical version, which I don't know if tactical is the right name for it, but it's a really well thought out version. And it has detachable box magazines, very ergonomic bolt handle. They're really impressive. If you were looking to get into the world of longer range shooting and you wanted a rifle that didn't weigh so much that you weren't actually going to take it out in the field, I'd have a hard time looking at anything other than this. Again, fantastic, and I have never heard anybody say they were inaccurate. And it's a good proven receiver and a top of the line barrel. I mean, as far as bolt action rifles go, as long as it's not in a horrible stock, there's not much to them. That's pretty much it. So, again, just really cool rifle, really cool variants. And here's the thing, you may think like I'm a Savage fanboy. I don't even own one anymore. I'm not a gun collector. I'm a gun fighter. I've owned a couple of Savages in the past. I've been very happy with them. But when they didn't fill a role for me that I needed, I got rid of them, sold them, whatever. But I would have no problem buying a Savage again if it fit my criteria. Especially if I was getting back into western varmint hunting, which is something I really like to do. Prairie dogs, coyotes. For that, I don't really care about push feed, control round feed. I would give a good hard look at Savage. Anyway, a good American-made, affordable, very accurate bolt action rifle. With that, going to start transitioning into the tactical tip of the day and the tactical verse of the day. Now, in 2023, I assume if you're getting a bolt action rifle, you're probably going to mount a scope on it. They make special scope lapping kits and tools, and I have one of those up, but I didn't have it in the right size recently. And since I got the Alaska rifle and I wanted to be a good steward of resources, I've kind of been playing musical chairs with scopes that I had to put one on there and then rearrange some things on different rifles and cannibalizing some rifles I'm not planning on taking to Alaska. So I've been mounting some scopes, some optics. One thing you can do if you don't have that tool, if you don't know about lapping scope rings, you might want to look into it. You can buy that tool kit, or you can perhaps use an older, broken, or very cheap, like 22 scope of the same or same diameter. Even a cheap scope, unless you've bent it, should have a pretty straight tube. And you can use that with some lapping compound to turn and lap said scope rings. Worked when I did it, I could tell, because it lapped the rings very well and made them more concentric. That's kind of the point. So that's tactical tip of the day, some lapping compound, which even if you're a semi kind of gunsmith, you should probably have some. And then if you're a big shooter, you might have a cheaper or old broken scope laying around of similar diameter. So a good way to lap scopes if you don't have that proper scope alignment and lapping system. If you do want one of those, again, no affiliation, but Wheeler does make those in different sizes. Anyway, that's your tactical tip of the day, your tactical verse of the day. From Proverbs 3, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. What a different world it would be if we all just did that one simple verse. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. That's something that I often pray, and I hope that you pray too. God, keep me on the right path. And I think that is a mark of a lukewarm Christian who in Revelation says will get spit or vomited out of his mouth. And a real true Christian, and there's a time to ask for stuff from the Lord, for sure. Jesus certainly did. But from just going to asking God for stuff, asking God what He wants you to do, instead of what you want all the time. God, what do you want me to do? Please keep me on the right path. Which decision do you want me to make? So again, I read, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. Thanks for listening, men, and have a blessed day.